Hi, and welcome to Cinema Figures. I'm your host, Caitlin, and today we are continuing on with our review series of the Friday the 13th franchise. So today we start in on what I think should be lovingly renamed as Saturday the 14th, aka Friday the 13th, Part 3. In 3D. So, why should Friday the 13th Part 3 be renamed, in my mind? Well, for starters, it doesn't actually take place on Friday the 13th. It actually happens immediately following the Part 2 segment. And, yeah, that would technically make it anywhere from Saturday the 14th to Monday the, 16th? Although that's not nearly as catchy as Friday the 13th. So, Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. So, this was a brand new kind of shift in the Friday the 13th franchise, where they started going a bit more for like the campy elements. They did implement the brand new idea of 3D segments, where they kind of, it started becoming a big thing from the 1950s now to the 80s, where everyone's doing 3D. So we've got Jaws 3 in 3D. We've got this in 3D, we've got that in 3D, and, yeah, Friday the 13th 3 in 3D definitely went for the cheap 3D elements. It's mostly a lot of poles coming at you, a lot of things getting pulled by strings, things like that, kind of gags, which, as funny as it sounds, really hasn't aged terribly well, which kind of makes this movie even better, I'm not gonna lie. But the 3D elements really haven't aged super well, and there's a lot of elements thrown in that are trying to angle towards the 3D. I mean, even when you look at the opening credit sequence, and all the 3D elements there, it's definitely very campy compared to the much more serious tone of the first two films. So, that and the kind of like upbeat intro music, maybe that was their way of saying, hey, this is gonna be a funner, like a little crazier, a little zanier installment to Friday the 13th. So, Friday the 13th, Part 3. What do we have here? So it takes place immediately following Part 2, which means basically we're going to take the last sequence, the last little fight sequence in Part 2, and we're just going to play that verbatim as our opener and then throw in one little extra blurb, and that's going to be our opener. So, that's going on. And of course, Jenny is getting taken off to the hospital, thought to be the only survivor. And little fact was, originally they were going to actually make this kind of an even bigger sort of rip on the Halloween 2 storyline, where in Halloween 2 we actually have Laurie Strode going to the hospital, dealing with that, getting chased around by Michael Myers there. And originally they wanted to bring Jenny back and have her get chased around in a hospital by Jason, and yeah, actress was not signing on to that. She's like, nah, I'm good. But Friday the 13th Part 3, we start on into this film with a news clip talking about what has just happened the previous day, the night before, and this couple that's just living their lives on their own property, not hurting anyone. And the news bulletin really going into some of the details as to what happened with this massacre that Jason was doing. Which, by the way, there's certain details that are thrown into this that I'm like, and I don't really remember that happening. Things like cannibalism and sexual mutilation. I'm like, we didn't really get to see what happened to Paul. So, I'm sorry. You were cool. It never really confirms what happens to him. So, if he got cannibalized or sexually mutilated, I'm sorry. But, continuing on. Of course, this couple, they're just on their own property. They're dealing with their own lives. And Jason's just kind of skulking around. And he kills both of them pretty quickly. So, continuing on, it basically becomes a horror version of, like, the Scoobies. Only way more boring and way more forgettable. And, you know, Jason kind of takes a back seat for a lot of this film. So we are introduced to our final girl, Chris, and all of her friends. So we've got our token potheads, we've got the jock, we've got Shelly, the guy who thoroughly irritates the shit out of a lot of people, but he actually ends up becoming very important to the franchise as a whole because he's the reason why Jason got rid of the sack as a mask and actually started donning his hockey mask that we all know and love today. So, you know, thank you for that, Shelly. But we find out that her crew, they are actually going to Hagen's Haven, and it's Chris's family's barn, yeah. But ultimately we find out she hasn't been there in a little while, and a big part of it plays into she may or may not have been attacked there one night when she got into a little bit of a fight with her parents, and took off and decided to take a nap in the woods because that's totally what you should do as a unarmed young female that's totally alone in the woods. You should totally just take a random nap under a tree. Yeah, don't do that. It's not that smart. But yeah, random hobo Jason that looks nothing like what we saw in part 2 and looks a bit more like the part 1 version, but all grown up. No hair, you know, very deformed and everything. And I'm going to mention something.
I blacked out. I don't know what happened after that. I just don't know.
Piss off a lot of people. There's a huge controversy whether or not Chris was actually raped by Jason or not, and it's a huge freaking debate in the community. I'm not going to comment on that because I'm one of the people that prefers to just ignore it and move on. But I will tell you that this was a very early installment in the character, and as a whole, they were just kind of feeling out the waters and trying to figure out what he was all about. So I don't know. I'm not gonna comment on it, but I don't know. So, of course, moving on, we get to meet Chris's, shall we say, hunky little boy toy or whatever that's apparently just palling around waiting for her to hang out. And all of her friends. So, Hagen's Haven, we have got a pothead couple, we got a pregnant couple, we have Shelly and his date Vera, who is not interested, and yeah, we got Jason sneaking into the barn, because yeah, didn't you know, Camp Crystal Lake, it's all about those barns. Yeah, so the one thing that really bothers me about Friday the 13th Part 3, more than I think anything else, is Jason as a character doesn't give a fuck. He really doesn't. He wants to be left alone. He wants to live out his days, Camp Crystal Lake. He wants to just be isolated and alone. And he kills people when you encroach on his territory. If you're in Camp Crystal Lake, you're fucked. You're gonna die horribly. But for the most part, he doesn't want anything to do with anyone else. This movie, we get to see him going into a barn and encroaching on other people's property and seeking out people to kill randomly for no apparent frickin' reason. But, you know, why the hell not? So, continuing on, we've got this really awkward moment where they start bringing in some minority characters, but unfortunately they make them the bad guys of this film. Yes, the first African-American characters we have in this series, and they are biker thugs who are just kind of harassing our crew, and ultimately Shelly pisses him off, so they end up coming back to Hagen's Haven, following him there, and they're going to fuck up people's shit, or at least they think they're going to, until Jason makes pretty quick work of them. So, continuing on, we see basically a number of our characters just getting killed one by one by one. We do have some pretty solid kills in the form of, for some reason I can't remember this character's name for the life of me. He is part of the pregnant couple, and his death was pretty fantastic.
Andy! Yeah? Are you still out there? I can't hear you.
So just a gnarly way of just getting split when you're doing the handstands. And then later we actually see him when his girlfriend finds his body when she's just laying in a hammock. And you find out that his legs have been split and he's all like contorted up there. Which, dude, the carnage candy in that scene alone is friggin' fantastic. We do have quite a few what the fuck moments. For example, Shelly's dead. Oh my god scene. I mean, really? Did we really need this? This is some of the worst acting in the entire franchise, and it's so funny to this day for me. I can't watch this scene and not laugh. But continuing on, like I said earlier, some of the 3D effects have not aged well. There's a moment where we actually see someone have their head crunched in by Jason, which just to show the sheer strength of Jason alone, that's fucking fabulous. Then you get into how cheap and corny that 3D effect looks now, and it's really sad. The thing that I hate the most about this film is how it's aged. It's a fun film. It's a fun film. It is not the horrifyingly bad film that I'm sure I'm making it sound to be. It's a fun film. It is a good popcorn flick to watch. If you were watching this franchise, this is a film I would definitely suggest you watch. But the 3D effects on it are really, really making it hard, especially when you are watching this in 2D. Like, you're seeing a yo-yo coming at you in dynamic 3D. Only it's 2D. Or, you know, we do have some rip-off kills, like the pregnant girl getting killed a la, you know, Kevin Bacon when she's reading Fangoria. So, you know, cool little thing right there. And, other moments, like, I understand Crazy Ralph was fantastic, but apparently we got crazy hobos everywhere. Yeah, crazy hobo. why would you approach this guy? I would not approach this guy at all. If I saw him in the street, I'm like, nope, not gonna happen, not gonna happen. But continuing on, another issue I have with this film would definitely be our choice of final character. So there are two characters that probably take the most runtime and have the most storyline. So of course we have our final girl, we have Chris, and we've got Shelly. Chris is very by the numbers and for the most part just kind of going through the motions of being a final girl. And I'll tell you right now, after the high point of having Jenny as our final girl, we're going to drop down and have Chris as our final girl. And nothing against the actress. I mean, Dana, I'm sure you put your all into it. But even your chase sequence, it just seems like your heart's not completely into it, hun. Now, you have her there, or you have Shelly there, which, hear me out. I know a lot of people hate Shelly. Now, you put Shelly in this group, and he's thought a lot to be kind of an outsider of the group. He is kind of the brunt of a lot of their jokes, and they don't take him very seriously, which honestly I wouldn't take him very seriously either. He kind of like stages his own like fake death, and when he actually is dying, they don't take him seriously.
Well, at least you got the outside lights working. Nice makeup job. Stop fooling around, man.
I just think it's another joke. Not to mention, Shelly's kind of iconic and important for this franchise as a whole. He is the person who ended up giving Jason his very iconic hockey mask. Without Shelly, there is no hockey mask for Jason. And for the most part, you see him for so much of the runtime, and you're not going to have him be one of the final characters. It doesn't make sense. I feel like he has more growth and development throughout this film as a whole compared to Chris. Just saying. So the Jason in this film, you know, savage as fuck, killing pregnant girls. You know, going after just innocent married couples, just going about their lives, hanging out in barns quite a bit for some reason, which is really weird. But this is also kind of like a really fucking weird Jason, to be completely honest. Like there's a moment where in the fight sequence between him and Chris manages to hang him. And to show the brute strength of this Jason, which this is a high point, he's able to pull himself out of the noose, but he takes the time to lift his mask to show her and then like smiles at her like, I know you. Yeah, that's right. It was me. And he does a lot of silly things like this throughout the film, which in comparison to the rest of the Jason Voorhees world, it's just it's a little odd. It's a little odd, but you know, it's a choice. It's a choice. And yeah, as far as we get on into the ending, we kind of just rip off the original with a little bit of a twist. So Chris finds out that Jason isn't dead, sees that he's very happy to see her, and she's on a boat, a little canoe. some reason. Oh, but it's all good though, because Mama Bear's there to give you a hug. Yeah. Yeah, only, apparently for some reason she's a zombie, and I don't know why she'd be in the water, because she didn't drown, and I don't know why her head's fully intact. But, you know, whatever. You know, it's all good. Because it's just a dream. Because apparently Freddy Krueger has been fucking with this franchise since the first frickin' film. Because apparently he's just been lending his powers out to Jason, screwing with these people since the first fricking film. Because for some reason, Jason Voorhees is always getting in your dreams too. Okay? You thought that Freddy was the only thing to be afraid of when you're dreaming. You're wrong, because it's Jason Voorhees, apparently, and his mom, apparently. That's what we find out in the first 3 films right here. Jason can enter your dreams. Which, I can say Freddy in this, because he's going to make a guest appearance later on down the line in this countdown. But, yeah, so we find out that once again it is a dream sequence, and ultimately Chris, she's taken away by the authorities, and it's thought that she's gone a little wackadoo from surviving through all this. Yeah, so Jason racked up quite a few kills in this, and some of them were pretty awesome. So all in all, I will tell you, this is not a bad film. And I think the way to make this a fantastic film for younger viewing audiences and even people who have never seen this film before, I would highly suggest that once this lawsuit, once this whole dispute is finally settled, if they could find a way to go back and remaster Part 3. Remaster Part 3 and find a way to fix quite a few of the issues with the 3D. I highly doubt that there's a way that they could actually adapt this to fitting into current 3D models and actually make it work, you know, with that. But I mean, hell, they can go back and touch up Wizard of Oz and make it as vibrant and bright as it is today. They can go back and do Gone with the Wind, which, yes, I know, very expensive productions versus a cheap slasher horror film. But I think it could be fantastic. I love this film. I know I just ripped it a new one, but I do love this film. This is a very fun film. There's some bad acting in there. There's some really cheesy 3D special effects in here, which kind of sad because when this film was first released for home video release, it was in 2D for the most part. And in 2D, it just doesn't have the same hit to it. And I would like to feel that 3D effect in 2020. Can't we find a way to make this film have that same 3D punch? You know? I'd love to see it. That would be my hope for possibly remastering or revamping this film as a whole. So that is it for this video for Cinema Figures, this episode. Please do give me a like if you like this video. Comment below and tell me what you thought of Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. Tell me if you actually saw this in theaters in 3D back in the 80s and what it was like. I've spoken to a couple people about it, and they said that this film was one of the best things in 3D. So I'd love to hear your responses there. I wasn't alive then, but I'd love to hear more about it. Also, tell me, am I wrong? Is Chris your final girl? Is this the greatest Jason ever? Tell me your favorite death scenes. Tell me all. Talk about it all down in the comment section below. Also, please do subscribe to Cinema Figures for more content like this, or to see the rest of the countdown that I'm currently doing here. We are going through all of the Friday the 13th films, and, you know, talking about the highs and the lows throughout, which, trust me, we're going to get farther down in the numbers, and there's going to be some lows. There's definitely going to be some lows, but, yeah, check those out, and yeah, until next time, I'm your host, Caitlin. Bye.